Hello, this is Paul CHEK. Welcome to my video blog. Today I thought I would progress from my last blog that I did on Flatland and use some of those concepts for those of you that are following my blogs. Hopefully it's still fresh in your mind. So today we're going to move forward with, shall we say, maybe one of the most important and deepest questions that you'll ever ask yourself. I've titled this blog, I, X, or what, question mark, therefore I am. So I am what, therefore I am. Now, René Descartes, a French scientist, mathematician, philosopher who is considered to be by some the father of modern science and philosophy, and also if you track the split between science and religion, many say it leads right back to Descartes. Descartes is quite famous for his statement, I think, therefore I am. So the underlying statement is there is because you have your own thoughts, you are a thinker. And the underlying thing there is that because you're having your own thoughts, you are, i.e. you are something independent from everything else. I think that's a genius proposition, and it's probably very, very useful and helped us really grow and develop our scientific and mathematical and philosophical understandings. But since then, there's been many other thinkers of tremendous capability and novelty that have expanded and taught us many things. Today, I will lean on the work of Rudolf Steiner, who is a very, very evolved mystic. He's not with us now. He died some time ago. But his teachings are quite profound. They're quite hard for people to follow because he is very deep, and almost all the many books with Steiner's name on them are actually transcriptions of his lectures to his advanced students, and they are transcribed directly from Austrian, and they didn't do a very good job of adjusting the syntax to the English language, and Steiner uses a lot of words that are, shall we say, unique to his philosophy, often does not have indexes or glossaries in his books, so people get mentally fatigued and can't follow him very well. So you have to really be very disciplined, as I have, studying Steiner for over 20 years, and I have about 170 of his books in my library, which I refer to fairly regularly. The other one I will work with today is Carl Jung, who is really considered the father of modern depth psychology, who did a lot to advance our understanding of what consciousness is, what the soul is, what the shadow is, what the persona or personality is, and how those things work together and how they relate to the unconscious mind or the shadow elements and positive elements within our psyche. And alive and well today is another one who is right up there with these guys, and that is Ken Wilber. And as we did last time, we will lean on a little Ken Wilber today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you on a tour to help you decide what might go in there. I'm going to propose that instead of I think, with our current knowledge, understanding, and life experiences individually and collectively, we might come to the conclusion that to say I love, therefore I am, would be a much more holistic, realistic, comprehensive, accurate statement. And if we embody the concept in the way that I'm going to do my best to share with you as best I can without making it so complicated it's hard to follow, then we will all embrace each other, embrace life, and embrace the planet, which needs our loving embrace at this time. And probably be able to feel more inspired, excited, and joyful by realizing the process that we're all going through together. And when we understand the process, it helps us focus on things that are more meaningful and sustainable in life than a lot of the things that we spend our money, time, and energy doing now, which are often extremely destructive to the planet. And these things were very, very concerning to people like Carl Jung and Rudolf Steiner, who both were very concerned that human beings were developing such an unconscious shadow that by projecting that shadow into their, shall we say, immature spiritual development, you end up with a bunch of highly intellectual, self-centered people with very advanced technologies, yet the maturity of about a teenager using nuclear weapons and nuclear power sources and all the things that we have, which is a very, very dangerous tipping point that we're at right now. So let me see if I can explain to you why I think Therefore I Am could be updated to I Love Therefore I Am and have a much more significant meaning in your life and minimize a lot of confusion that unfortunately is infused into us at a tremendous intensity through not only our educational systems, but marketing by science, the scientific establishment, the religious establishment, and we're getting hit from all sides largely because there's a lot of profit being made on keeping people at a level where they never really grow spiritually, because the more problems people have, the more they need the church, the more they need or perceive that they need modern medicine, and the system, shall we say, becomes a self-sustaining nightmare that is highly profitable. So that profit is actually extraction from the earth in many ways because of the way we deify our egos and don't really know what an ego is. So one of the first things we want to do is we want to look at Carl Jung's consciousness compass. The C in the middle of the heart stands for consciousness. I want to make the clear distinction that when I'm using the term consciousness in this way, consciousness in capital letters would mean that which contains consciousness of. So self-awareness. You have to first be conscious, but to be self-aware, you must be conscious of yourself. So Jung showed us that consciousness expresses itself with 4 unique qualities, and if we do not use these qualities of consciousness in a balanced way, we become proportionately blind to what we're choosing and what's happening in our life, and it leads us to banging into things, be it relationships, money, sex, drugs, politics. We just keep on being in a state of friction and chaos and always looking for some pill or some guru to pull us out of it, when ultimately the only real medicine there is to wake up and pull ourselves out. Teachers, gurus, and guides are useful if they are teaching you how to do this for yourself. But if you become dependent upon a guru, a teacher, a drug, etc., then you're actually really chained to that mode of perception, and it leads to stunted growth, which is a big problem in the world today. So Jung's consciousness compass and the 4 qualities that Jung clearly identified and many researchers agree with, and I'm a person who uses this in my daily life and can tell you it's as real gets, which brings up another point. If you're going to study from people that exemplified their own development. Steiner exemplifies his development. Ken Wilber exemplifies his development. Carl Jung was a very profound living example of his own development. So if you see the results in the teacher, then it's worth listening to. But today we have a big problem. Most of our so-called experts don't really display any evidence that their own concepts or teachings are working effectively in their own lives. So at the top we have I for intuition, which is counterbalanced by sensation, T for thinking, which is counterbalanced by feeling. Here we need to make a clear distinction between sensation and feeling. Sensation relates to anything coming through your five senses, what you hear, what you smell, what you touch, what you taste, etc. So those are things that give us sensations. They're the things that come by way of our nervous system. Sensations can be measured. So for example, if you have someone on an electroencephalogram that measures brain waves and you poke their finger, you'll get an immediate response. If you let them smell something, you'll see the brain centers light up. If they touch, etc., all of those things can actually, their response in the nervous system can be measured, which is part of the problem, because when we keep measuring these things and thinking that that's what's happening, then we stop paying attention to the fact that the process that you're measuring is really a subjective response that we cannot measure. We can only measure the response. For example, we don't have any instruments that can measure how much love you're giving to yourself or others, or what the quality of that love is, but we can observe behaviors and we can analyze behaviors. We can look at someone's biological response to anger, to fear, intimacy, or love, and we can see how the body is responding. But it's a big mistake to think that if you have somebody that doesn't have certain brain areas lighting up, that's the problem, and therefore give them pills or whatever. That might help a little bit, but we have to remember that the system is lighting up in accordance with the subjective informations and feelings and energies passing through it. So we're really measuring the after effect, and what's happening on the inside. That's really what the study of spiritual science is. Spiritual science, as Steiner says, is looking for the causes. Modern science looks at effects. Okay? So, first and foremost, the statement, I think, therefore I am, really only looks at 1/4 of what it means to be conscious, and thoughts without sensations would make you, shall we say, a computer. Feeling does not relate to feeling like sensation relates to feeling. Feeling relates to the deep values, the moral drive that all, not only humans have been shown to have, but research in nature shows that all the way through the insect and animal kingdom, there is a moral imperative or a moral drive. A moral is a code of conduct that is life affirmative. An ethic is a code of conduct that may or may not be life affirmative. Soldiers have soldiers' manuals, which are the ethics of a soldier, who you will kill, who you won't kill. But those things may not be moral. You'd never know if it was moral until you really knew whether or not the war was justified or just some kind of corporately contrived or power contrived show, which is, watch the movie 3 series Zeitgeist for a small snapshot of what I mean there. So feeling relates to values, your deepest sense of why you're doing something or what it means to you and to your life. So we want to be very, very aware. If we have thoughts without feelings, well, then we do things like make microwave ovens, and even when the research shows that they cause immune stress and lead to all sorts of health and even death in babies in the hospital, we are so enamored with ourselves that it's such a great idea that it'll save time and you can cook food faster. But at the same time, our values are such that we're not really paying attention to the fact that research shows they're very dangerous. And the same could be with drugs. Look at all the drugs that have been taken off the market because they were making people sick, giving them diseases, or killing them. Same with vaccinations. High correlation between various vaccinations and the rapid rising level of autism. So what you see is thinking without values. Over here, instead of feeling, for those people, we just put a dollar sign. And that's their sense of feeling. Okay? Intuition means the ability to sense or perceive the invisible connections between thoughts or things, or people, places, and things, or even ideas. So intuition is a very unique quality in that, A, if you don't have sensation, you don't know that you're connecting to something. If you don't have adequate knowledge, then your intuition doesn't have any context within which to operate. You could say we're all fully intuitive, but because we don't have the depth of understanding, remember, when you're intuiting, you're accessing, shall we say, the mind of the entire cosmos. So imagine the depth of information and knowledge that's available to us. But you can go to a first grade classroom and give a lesson on quantum physics, and you may be enamored with yourself, but those people don't have the context to understand the lesson. So what we find is that intuition only works to the degree that one has adequate depth and breadth of knowledge to contextualize intuition, which is why, as I'll show you, each of the stages that the soul grows through is so important, and they're all necessary for the ultimate experience of enlightenment, which I will also go into. So I think, therefore I am, misses, I intuit, therefore I am, I feel, therefore I am, and I sense, therefore I am. But interestingly, thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition are all inherent aspects or components of what loving is. I won't go into that in great detail for time's sake today, but these are the kinds of things that I teach in the Holistic Lifestyle Coaching Program, particularly at HLC 2 and 3 level, where we get deeper and deeper, because I'm training you and my instructors are training you to be a professional holistic lifestyle coach in service to other people and to the world itself. So the first thing we do is make sure you understand how to eat, sleep, breathe, and live those things, so you're not just a talking head when you're working with other people. Now, love and the soul are both very, very elusive in all cultures in the world. There's very few clear definitions of what love is. There's very few clear definitions or agreements on what the soul is. I've studied both of these things extensively. I have about 120 books on the soul. I've studied it worldwide through philosophy, through religion, through mysticism, and in my own life of meditations, shamanic journey work, and all other sorts of experiences, such as just getting along with myself and other people, which is the best study of all. To help clarify what love is, for my students, I have created 2 working definitions for which I've seen no better out there, and I see partial definitions, but I have synthesized this into something that I think is meaningful and holistic. So what I define love as is the flow of energy and information through empathic connection to self or other, which could be others. Let's look at that again. The flow of energy and information. The whole physical universe is manifest of energy. That's straight, hard science. And scientists have said over and over again that energy is information, and information is energy. Now, you could get into some very technical distinctions there, but they would just be more intellectualizing. In other words, some might say that information does not need to be energy. That could be true in a quantum non-local process, but I think for all of us, if you're listening to me right now and you're hearing the information, you will also notice that there's changes happening inside you. There's potentially emotions rising up. There's feelings being activated or values being touched on. So you see that my information is being conveyed on my energy to you, and it meets your energy and you interact with it. If it was only information, you'd have no feeling or sensation, which would make it extremely flat. Life would not be very full. So if you look at Daniel Siegel, MD's definition of the mind, which is an embodied process that regulates the flow of energy and information, you can see that mind itself is based on the flow of energy and information. An embodied process means the individual mind is embodied within its own body, within which it has a nervous system that we could say is the interpretation system of determining what the energy and information means. For example, when we're talking to a child that may be 1 year of age that does not have any language yet, we're getting more energetic communication than we are actual linguistic or intelligible information, but we learn through our sense of sensation and feeling to connect to the child, and then we sort of fill in the gaps with our higher level of intellect. And if we are sensitive enough, intuitive enough, and aware enough, then we are going to be quite accurate. And this is really a quality that's more established in mothers than it is in fathers. So the flow of energy and information, i.e. mind, without mind there is no idea, no experience, through empathic connection. Empathic means to feel the other. To have empathy means I feel you. To have compassion means I understand you. The reason I don't have compassion in there is because you can understand somebody, but you may not have any empathy for them. You can understand right now that there's over 1 billion people on the planet that don't have a toilet, don't have fresh water, and are starving. But the fact that most of us in the United States and the Western world aren't doing a damn thing about it shows you that we do not have feeling connected to that. So when you have thought without feeling or compassion, we understand that they're in big trouble, but we don't have adequate amounts of empathy to engage at a local, national, or world level. Certainly there are groups doing the best they can, but the problem's of a magnitude that it requires all of us to participate. In other words, we've all got to become more empathic, which is what happens naturally, as I'll show you, as the soul grows and matures. My next definition, which is a more concise definition but requires more life experience and wisdom to truly grasp the meaning of. Oftentimes when you make things simple, they get very complex. The Tai Chi symbol is as simple gets, but you can spend the rest of your life and many lifetimes really getting to the meaning of that thing. So my second definition is that love is consciousness becoming aware of itself. So if you look at this, the flow of energy and information through empathic connection to self or others, what you would see is that you have to be conscious to even sense the flow of energy and information. You have to be conscious to be empathic, and you have to be conscious to know who you are and who the other or others are. So ultimately, love is really consciousness becoming aware of itself. And if you think of religious ideas about what God is, most religions, if they don't agree on anything, do tend to agree that God is love, and the highest form of love would be unconditional love. So unconditional love would be consciousness in all caps, and then individuation through sentient beings would create consciousness of, and that's what an ego is. An ego by definition means border, barrier, or self-definition. So if I have an ego, I can be conscious of what I am choosing to add to consciousness. So ultimately, if you understand that, you understand that we are all co-creators in what's happening in the world and in our own lives. And because the world is part of the universe itself, we are part of the creation of the entire universe, but we get so myopic watching so much television and getting trapped in our own little rat race that we forget that we are part of something so much larger than we can conceive of unless we spend time in meditation and hanging out with people that can guide us into these bigger experiences, that we lose sight of the beauty and the grandeur and the majesty of the mystery of life and love itself, which leads to flatland, which is what I talked about in my last video lesson.